April 13th. Recital day. My tummy hurts, but I'm being brave about it.
Hey, bud.
Hey,
Is this how you deal with stage fright?
I don't have stage fright. You have stage fright.
I mean, yeah, I do. A lot of people do. But there are better ways to deal with stage fright than pretending to be the vampire from Twilight?
No, I'm Batman.
I couldn't tell without the mask.
I was gonna put the mask on.
No.
I'm vengeance.
Hey guys, and welcome to our final part of our recital preparedness series. If you're new to the channel, welcome! My name is Freddy, and I am a trumpet player here with the Lakes Brass Quintet, and a trumpet teacher here in Nashville. We post weekly videos featuring brass quintet arrangements, sheet music, brass tips, and general music tips like the video you're watching right now. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our uploads. But today we're talking about a bit of a taboo subject for performers, and that's performance anxiety. In simple terms, performance anxiety can be described as extreme nervousness experienced before and or during participation in an activity taking place in front of an audience. Now, this anxiety or stage fright can affect people in different ways. For some people, they have no problem getting on stage, but when they're on stage, their body starts to work against them. They get tense, they start shaking, and that affects their performance. Some people actually feel physically ill before they have to give a performance. And there are people out there whose performance anxiety is so bad that they can't even get up on stage and share their gift with the world. Now, the problem as I see it with performance anxiety is that it's become stigmatized. Being anxious about a performance is seen as a sign of weakness. And rather than admit this anxiety, this weakness, a lot of people just try to pretend that it doesn't exist. But then they show up to their recital or their show, and their anxiety causes them to fall apart on stage. And then you get even more anxious about your next performance. And the vicious cycle just continues and continues. Now, if anything I just said resonates with you, know that you are not alone. Many of your favorite celebrities have gone on the record about their struggles with performance anxiety, which is helping to destigmatize the subject. So in that spirit, today I'm going to be giving you some tips on how to mitigate the effects of performance anxiety so you can give your best performance. But more importantly, I'm going to be asking 4 questions that I want you to spend some serious time reflecting on. Let's get started. In order to conquer your nerves, you need to know what nerves are. When we are in situations of extreme stress, like a performance, our bodies have a biological response to keep us safe. This is our fight or flight response. In these stressful situations, our brains release a chemical called adrenaline. This chemical gives us the energy to either physically defend ourselves or to run away. Typically, we associate this response with a physical threat. Maybe you're out in the woods and you come across a bear, or you just find yourself in a physical confrontation with another person. But why would our brains have this reaction when we perform for other people? Where's the threat? I have a theory. Now, the fight or flight response is a biological defense mechanism to make sure the human race survives. And I think we can agree that one aspect of the human condition that has not changed throughout the entire history of our species is the need to conform to the majority. Let's just take a second to think about what happened to people who spoke against the will of the majority. Yeah, that's how we got Christianity and the guillotine. Now let's take a look at performance through the lens of human interaction. You, the soloist, the individual, is standing up in front of an audience, the majority. You are expressing your individuality to the majority. Now, I'd like to think that we're more civilized than we were during the French Revolution or the premiere of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, if you know, you know, but we still have an ingrained fear of rejection from the tribe. Thus, the threat that we face when performing is the personal rejection from the majority. But hey, that's just a theory. A music theory. I hated that. Now, we're probably not going to be able to undo thousands of years of mental conditioning, but we can learn how to transform nerves, which are harmful to performance, into energy, which can fuel our performance. Let's talk about it. We have to stop framing the surge of adrenaline as nerves. Instead, let's use the term activation. This term activation comes from Don Green's book, Performance Success. Dr. Green is a peak performance psychologist who has coached over 1,000 musicians to win big auditions and have successful careers. If you want even more advice and actionable steps to conquer your performance anxiety, go get his book. I'll be making reference to some of the concepts in Dr. Green's book throughout this video, so if you like the tips that you hear, definitely add this book to your collection. Anyway, the first thing you're going to need to do is experience activation in a safe environment. And no, I don't mean a practice room. There is a psychological difference between practicing and performing. And we're trying to practice performing, which means that we need to simulate the adrenaline rush that you get when you walk out on stage. Now, you could do this by performing your pieces for a friend, or you could even go play in an uncomfortable environment. You might also just do a bunch of jumping jacks before you play to get your heart rate up. However you decide to simulate performance, you want to be actively analyzing your body's response to stress. Don't just say, "I feel nervous." Instead, listen to your body. Are you tense? Where is your tension? How is your breathing? Are your palms sweaty? Knees weak? Arms are heavy? Vomit on your sweater already? Mom's spaghetti? You know what I'm saying? Take note of these points of tension, your breath, and your heart rate when you're in this activated state. By categorizing how stress impacts us physically, we can start taking steps to mitigate our symptoms. So if my first question was, what are nerves? My second question for you guys is, how does your body react to stress? Now let's talk about how Dr. Green suggests we deal with this activation or this activated state. Once we have an understanding of how our bodies react to adrenaline, we have to practice a skill that Dr. Green defines as centering. Centering is a 3-step process that converts adrenaline into useful energy. Like any skill you work on as a musician, centering is something that you can actively practice and get better at. The first thing you're going to need to do is get control over your breath. Most meditative practices have some focus on deep breathing, and centering is no exception. In addition to having a calming effect on the body, deep breathing helps pull focus back into the present moment. Work on breathing deep down into your belly, and as you exhale, scan your body for points of tension, allowing those muscle groups to relax. Some common places for tension are your neck, shoulders, back, jaw, and tongue. Once you've gotten your breath under control, the second step is to find your actual center of gravity, which Green identifies as being 2 inches below your belly button. Finding this point will allow you to find balance and control over your body. Continue taking deep breaths as you find your center and feel yourself become grounded and stable. The final step of centering is to find a focal point that you can direct all of your energy towards. Now, depending on your comfort level, your focal point may be super close to you, or it could be the exit sign all the way past the audience. For me, when I'm really full of adrenaline, I need to focus on my stand, even if I'm just counting rests. If I look anywhere else, my mind and my focus is gone. And if I'm playing something from memory, I tend to focus on my fingers pushing down the valves on my trumpet. Wherever you choose to focus, having that focal point will help you rein in your attention and your energy during your performance. Practicing activation and centering on a regular basis will help you get focused Practicing activation and centering on a regular basis will help you become focused for a performance quicker and quicker and quicker the more you do it. It won't erase the adrenaline entirely, but you will have the skill set to get your mind and body under control while you're under extreme pressure. So my third question for you is, do you have a strategy to control your mind and body when you're in a stressful situation? And now for our fourth and perhaps most important question. Before you even step out on stage, you need to come to terms with the fact that your performance probably isn't going to go exactly the way you want it to go. Mistakes happen. And believe it or not, professional musicians, your favorite musicians, make mistakes all the time. We just don't know it because we're surrounded by perfection. I mean, think about it. Almost all the music you listen to are recordings that are worked on by teams of sound engineers whose sole purpose is to make a product that sounds perfect. But in a live performance, your musical heroes occasionally will make a mistake. The sooner you are able to accept the fact that mistakes happen, the sooner you'll be able to shift your focus from preventing mistakes at all costs to being able to recover from mistakes when they occur. If you're afraid to make a mistake, you are going to hold back in your performance. And if you are hyper fixated on not making a mistake, how much human expression are you putting into your music? No one goes to a concert to hear every note exactly as it's written in the score. People go to a concert to be emotionally moved by the music. People make music, and people make mistakes. But how should we respond to mistakes? Well, I actually have a clip from one of my Easter gigs this year where a few mistakes were made between myself and the vocalist that I was accompanying. The piece we were playing was The Trumpet Shall Sound, an aria from Handel's Messiah. Now, this piece is tricky both for me as the trumpet player and for the vocalist, so it's understandable that we made a mistake or two. Let's check out the clip and see how my fellow musicians and I handled the mistake. Yeah? Okay. It's funny watching that back and comparing it to what I thought had happened at the time. So basically what happened is the vocalist started to come in a bar early, caught himself, and then actually came in the right spot. But because I heard him start to come in, my focus kind of got thrown, and I wasn't sure what measure I was in, which caused me to kind of throw off that little descending scale pattern. So at the time, I thought I was playing in the wrong measure, and something was off. Now, we didn't have much time to actually rehearse this piece. We did like 10 minutes on the morning of the gig, and this is us playing at like 10:30 at night at an Easter vigil. So we agreed that, if anything were to go wrong, the organist would just catch the vocalist and I would find them. And I was able to find them again. Ironically, I wasn't in the wrong measure. I thought I was at the time. That's crazy. Now, if I were in this position a couple years ago, I would have been a nervous, shaking mess. I would have completely panicked. I would have had no idea where I was in the music, and I probably would have just stopped playing altogether, because if you get off by a beat or a measure and something like that, but because I practiced and learned my music, I was able to catch the organist and the vocalist within a measure or two, and we kept cooking to the end of the piece. And as for that little scale that I messed up, it's in the past. If I were to dwell on every note that came out of my bell that didn't sound exactly the way I wanted it to sound, I would drive myself crazy. One of the most important skills as a performer is the ability to flush away mistakes and quickly get back to the task at hand. When we are performing, our focus needs to be on the present moment. And if you are thinking about the future, you better be visualizing success. Because if you think you're gonna make a mistake, you're gonna make a mistake. So ask yourself right now, fourth and final question: how do I deal with mistakes? Learning how to accept mistakes is not a pleasant skill to achieve. No one likes to walk away from a gig feeling like you somehow made a fool of yourself. But focus on this: the world is still turning. You're still breathing. And if you're still breathing, you can keep pushing yourself to improve. It won't be fun, but with time, you'll be able to brush off mistakes the way that Superman brushes off bullets. Unlike Batman's parents.
My parents!
And with that, that concludes our series on recital and performance preparedness. If you enjoyed this series, be sure to drop a like on this video and maybe even a comment on a musical topic you'd like to hear us talk about next. We'll see you in the next one.